Please, don't leave me out here. The whisper came from an old woman collapsing into Abby Carson's arms, her lips blue, her fingers clutching the apron like a drowning soul grabbing rope. And in that single trembling second, Abby had no idea she had just opened her door to the one secret she had spent 3 years running from. Because by sunrise tomorrow, a black Escalade would pull up to this diner. A mafia boss would walk through that door, and the name the old woman had just whispered would rip open a grave that was never supposed to be reopened. If a story that begins with a stranger in a snowstorm and ends with a truth nobody was ready for is the kind of story you love, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let me know in the comments what city or town you're watching from tonight. I read every single one, and it means more than you know to see how far these stories travel. Now pour yourself something warm, settle in, and let's begin. 3 years. 3 years of looking over her shoulder in parking lots. 3 years of sleeping with a baseball bat within arm's reach. 3 years of flinching every time a stranger said her name a little too loud. And tonight, on the worst blizzard Burlington, Vermont had seen in a generation, Abby Carson was wiping down the same counter for the 5th time in an hour because she had forgotten how to be still. Stillness was dangerous. Stillness gave the memories room to come back. "Honey, you're gonna rub a hole in that formica." Abby looked up. Frank Davison was watching her from the corner booth, his wool cap already in his lap, his empty coffee cup pushed to the edge of the table. 78 years old. Walked 3 blocks every single afternoon for her cherry pie rain or shine or hellfire. The closest thing Abby had to family in this town, and he didn't even know her real name. "More coffee, Frank." "Better not, sweetheart. My doctor would skin me alive." He slid a 20 across the table with that unsteady hand of his. "You need to close up, Abby. This storm's got teeth. You got somebody at home waiting on you." The question landed softer than he knew. "No," Abby said. "Nobody waiting." "Then why are you still here?" She opened her mouth to give the answer she always gave: somebody might need a warm place tonight. But Frank wasn't having it this time. He leaned forward, and his old eyes held her the way a grandfather holds a granddaughter he's worried sick about but doesn't have the words for. "Abby," his voice dropped low, "I've been coming in here 3 years now, and in 3 years I ain't never seen you take a single night off. Not Thanksgiving, not Christmas, not your own birthday. You work like you're running from something." Her hand froze on the rag. The breath caught in her chest and stayed there sharp as a pin. He doesn't know, she told herself. He can't know. Nobody here knows. "Frank," she forced a smile. It felt like pulling a curtain across a window. "Go home, please, before the roads get worse." He held her eyes for another long second. Then he sighed the way a man sighs when he's decided to let something go. "You take care of yourself, kid. You too." He pulled his cap down, buttoned up his coat, and walked out into the storm. The bell jingled, the door closed, and Abby stood alone in the empty diner listening to her own heartbeat, running from something. He had no idea. He had no idea that her name wasn't Abby Carson, that it was Abigail Reynolds, that 3 years ago she had stood in a Manhattan courtroom and looked Angelo Bianchi in the eye and told 12 jurors exactly what she had seen him do in the back of a restaurant kitchen. She had no idea that the night after her testimony, 2 men in black gloves had been waiting in her safe house. That the only reason she was still alive was a woman named Officer Patricia Wright, who had shoved $47 into her hand and whispered, "Run." 3 cities, 2 fake IDs, 1 baseball bat under the counter, and nobody in Burlington knew a single piece of it. Nobody could know. She was just beginning to let herself breathe again when the door crashed open. The wind hit her first, a slap of ice that stole the air from her lungs. Then she saw the woman, tiny, silver-haired, wrapped in a coat that would have been too thin for October, let alone this. Snow caked in her eyebrows, snow melting down her neck. 1 step, 2 steps, and then her knees folded and she went down. Oh my God. Abby crossed the room before she had time to think. She caught the woman under the arms, and the weight of her was nothing the weight of a bird. The skin on her wrists was like touching a frozen pipe. Ma'am, look at me. Look at him." The woman's eyelids fluttered. Her lips moved. "Please." The whisper was barely a breath. "Please don't leave me out here." "Honey, you're inside. You're inside, you hear me. You're safe. I've got you. I've got you now. Abby half dragged, half carried her to the nearest booth. Her lips were a sick, dusky blue. Her hands were shaking so violently she couldn't have held a pencil. Stay there, don't you move, don't you try to stand. She ran, grabbed the emergency blanket from under the register, grabbed the mug she kept warmed on the coffee station, hit the hot water with her elbow because her hands were already full, dumped 2 chamomile tea bags and didn't wait for them to steep. She came back, wrapped the blanket around those thin shoulders, folded the old woman's fingers around the mug herself because the hands couldn't do it alone. Small sips, small sips. That's it, sweetheart. You're doing just fine. The woman drank 1 sip, 2. A tear slid out from under her closed eyelid, traced a clean line through the melting snow on her cheek. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. Let me look at you. Abby knelt down in front of the booth and took one of the old woman's hands in both of her own. The fingers were starting to warm. The trembling was slowing. Slowly, color was creeping back into that pale face like a flower opening in the sun. And that's when Abby noticed the eyes. They opened and they were amber. Not brown, not hazel. Amber. Almost gold. And sharper than any old woman half frozen to death had any right to be. What's your name, honey? Abby asked. The old woman looked at her for a long moment before she answered. Clara. Her voice carried the faint, soft, rolling consonants of an accent that had lived a long time in America, but had come from somewhere else first. Clara Rosetta. Abby Carson. Abby. The old woman repeated it slowly as if tasting it. A beautiful name. Ma'am, what in the world were you doing out in this? Clara Rosetta closed her eyes. A thin, tired laugh escaped her lips. My taxi, she said. My taxi driver. He said he couldn't see the addresses in the snow. He stopped at a corner and he told me this must be it. He put my suitcase down and he drove away. And I stood there in the snow and I realized I did not know where I was. He left you in this weather. He drove away. Oh, sweetheart. Abby squeezed her hand. Oh, honey. I walked until I saw your lights. Abby's throat tightened. You could have died out there. I know. How long were you walking? I don't know, Clara said. Long enough that I stopped feeling my feet. Abby stood up so fast her knees cracked. Okay. Keep drinking, don't move. I'm getting you soup. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I really do. You just sit there. Yeah. She was halfway through heating a bowl of her chicken noodle when she felt it. The stare. Abby looked up. Clara was watching her over the rim of the mug. Those amber eyes sharp as cut glass, watching every move she made. The way she held the ladle. The way she moved behind the counter. The way she kept the knife drawer half open out of habit. And in that second, something cold crawled up the back of Abby's neck. Because Clara Rosetta was not watching her the way a grateful old lady watches her rescuer. Clara Rosetta was watching her the way a lawyer watches a witness on the stand. Stop it, Abby told herself. Stop it. She's an old woman. She almost froze to death. You are paranoid. You have been paranoid for 3 years. Not everyone is after you. She brought the soup over. Bread, butter, a fresh napkin. Eat slowly. You're going to feel like a new woman in about 5 minutes. Clara took a careful spoonful, closed her eyes. This is wonderful, Abby. My mother's recipe. Where is your mother now? The question came so gently, and it hit so hard. Gone, Abby said, a long time ago. I'm sorry. Thank you. And your father also gone, brothers, sisters? No, ma'am. So you're alone in the world. Abby's hand paused on the edge of the table. I do all right. I'm sure you do. Clara took another spoonful. Where were you born, Abby? Vermont, Abby lied smoothly. Little town up north, you wouldn't know it. Try me. Milton, Abby said, picking the first name she could think of on a map. Town of Milton. Milton, Clara's amber eyes held hers. I've never heard of it. Most people haven't. Funny, Clara said softly. You don't have a Vermont accent. Abby's blood went a degree colder. She smiled. She kept her voice even. She had practiced this. She had been practicing this for 3 years. Moved around a lot as a kid. Ah, Clara nodded. That explains it. But those amber eyes did not leave Abby's face. DM. Abby excused herself to the back to grab clean towels. In the hallway alone, she braced one hand against the wall and forced herself to breathe. She's an old woman. She's just an old woman. Old women ask questions. That's what they do. That's what my grandma used to do. That's all this is. She walked back out with her smile screwed firmly in place. Now we need to figure out where you're supposed to be. You got an address, honey. Oh, yes. Clara fumbled in her purse with her slowly warming fingers. My grandson's house. He lives here in Burlington. She produced a slip of paper and slid it across the formica. Abby picked it up, unfolded it. Lake Manor Estates, North Property. The breath left her lungs for the second time that night. Everybody in Burlington knew about Lake Manor Estates. You didn't even need to be from here to know. It was the private wooded peninsula out past the old boat club, where the wrought iron gates came with armed men at the guardhouse, and the properties hadn't been listed on a public record in 2 decades. The kind of money that didn't have a face. The kind of money people in this town didn't ask questions about because people who asked questions about Lake Manor had a way of not getting asked back to dinner parties. Abby set the paper down very carefully. Your grandson lives at Lake Manor. Yes. That's a very nice area. He has done well for himself. Clara's face had gone unreadable. I haven't seen him in almost 8 years. Abby's eyes snapped up. 8 years. Almost 9 now, yes. I'm sorry, that must be painful, Clara said. Yes, it is, she paused. His name is Dante. Abby's stomach did something strange. She didn't know why. The name meant nothing to her. She didn't know anybody named Dante. She had never met a Dante. And yet some primal animal part of her, the part that had kept her alive through 3 years of running, had just flinched at a name she had never heard. Pretty name, Abby said. It's a family name. We have a lot of those. What does your grandson do? Clara looked at her slowly, steadily. He manages our family interests, she said. Imports mostly, from Italy originally. Import business, nice. Yes, a family business. My late husband built it from nothing. A shadow crossed Clara's face. Our son ran it after him. He passed also. Now it is Dante's. I'm so sorry for your losses. Thank you, dear. The silence stretched, and then Clara set down her spoon. Abby, may I ask you something? Of course. Why did you stay open tonight? Abby blinked. What do you mean? The storm has been coming for 2 days. Every weather channel, every radio station. The whole town knew. Your last customer left. Your streets were empty. Why, Abby, did you stay open? Something about the question, the quietness of it, the precision of it, put the fine hairs on Abby's arms on end. I always stay open, she said. Somebody might need a warm place. Yes, you told the old gentleman that before he left. Clara's amber eyes held hers. I was listening. Abby said nothing. Clara said, and her voice was very, very gentle now. Are you afraid of something? Every muscle in Abby's back locked. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. Ma'am, I saw the way you checked the lock on that door when you brought me in. I saw the way your eyes went to the window when headlights passed on the street an hour ago. I saw how you hold that knife drawer half open. Clara's hand reached out slowly and covered Abby's hand on the table. I have been watching you for 4 hours, Abby. You are a woman who has been running for a long, long time. Abby tried to pull her hand away. Clara held it. The old woman's grip was stronger than it should have been. I am not here to hurt you, Clara said softly. And Abby understood in that one frozen heartbeat that Clara had not been lost in the storm at all. Her voice came out a whisper. Who are you? I told you, Clara Rosetta. That's not what I'm asking. I know what you're asking. The old woman's amber eyes did not waver. Abby, she said I came looking for you. The diner was so silent Abby could hear the refrigerator hum. She could hear the wind pressing against the window. She could hear the tick of the old wall clock above the pie case, and each tick was a hammer on her chest. You don't know me, Abby breathed. I know enough. You don't know my name? I know you are a woman who walked into a Manhattan courtroom 3 years ago and said something very brave, Clara said. And I know you have been paying for it ever since. The floor swayed under Abby. She sat down, hard, in the booth across from this tiny silver-haired woman with eyes the color of old brandy. Get out, Abby whispered. Abby, get out of my diner. Get out right now. Whoever you are, whoever sent you, I don't care. Get out. Nobody sent me, Clara said. Liar. I came on my own. I came in the storm. I walked in the storm until I could not feel my own feet because I did not trust anyone else to find you for me. Find me, Yes. Why? Clara looked at her for a long time. And when the old woman finally spoke again, her voice had changed. It was still gentle. But under the gentleness, there was something hard as steel. Something that had survived a long, long life. Because Abby, she said, I need someone with your particular kind of courage. And I do not have much time left. And the men who hurt you are about to be hurt themselves if a brave woman is willing to help me do it. The bell above the door did not ring. The clock ticked. Outside, far away down the snow-buried street, a pair of headlights turned the corner and kept coming. Abby didn't see them yet, but Clara Rosetta did. The old woman's amber eyes flicked just once toward the window. Abby, dear, she said quietly, whatever happens in the next 10 minutes, I need you to remember that I came here to save your life, not to end it. What are you talking about? Well, lock the door. What? Lock the door, now. The fear in those amber eyes was the first real fear Abby had seen in Clara Rosetta all night. And that more than anything else was what made Abby Carson, who was not really Abby Carson, get up from that booth on legs that did not feel like hers, cross the diner, and turn the deadbolt with a hand that had started to shake again for the first time in 3 long, lonely running years. Behind her in the booth, the old woman reached into her coat pocket and closed her fingers around a small USB drive. The deadbolt clicked into place, and Abby turned around with her back pressed flat against the cold glass. Who is in that car, Clara? I don't know yet. You don't know. Move away from the window, dear. Clara, move away from the window. There was something in the old woman's voice that had not been there all night. A command. The kind of command that came from a person who had given commands her whole life. Abby stepped sideways out of the line of sight, and her hand went automatically to the counter to the baseball bat she kept clipped just under the lip, the way other women kept a pepper spray in their purse. Clara, you look me in the eye right now. Who did you bring to my door? I didn't bring anyone. You said you came looking for me. You said there wasn't much time. Now there are headlights at my curb on a night when the plows aren't even running. Who is in that car, Clara? The old woman's amber eyes were fixed on the window. Abby, please, in a moment. No, not in a moment, now. But the headlights kept coming. Slow, steady. The rumble was growing deeper than a passenger car mechanical grinding. Abby's grip on the bat tightened until her knuckles turned white. 3 years of running had taught her body what to do before her brain could catch up. Feet planted, breath shallow, eyes on the exits. The rumble passed the front of the diner. Did not stop. Kept going. A city plow, its yellow strobe light cutting slow arcs through the whiteout, dragged a wall of snow into the gutter and disappeared down the block. Abby's legs almost gave out. She laughed one short broken sound and pressed her free hand over her mouth. It was a plow. It was just a plow. Oh my God. Abby, don't you Abby me right now. She spun on the old woman. The baseball bat was still in her hand. You lied to me. I did not lie to you. You walked into my diner half frozen and you told me your taxi dropped you at the wrong address. You told me you got lost. You let me wrap you in a blanket. You let me feed you soup, Clara. You sat in that booth and you let me call you honey. And the whole time you were, her voice cracked. The whole time you were working me. Abby, please sit down. I am not sitting down. Well, then stand, but listen to me. But Clara Rosetta folded her small, knotted hands on the tabletop. The USB drive was still in her palm, pressed under her thumb like a coin she didn't want to show the table yet. She lifted her amber eyes to Abby's face, and for the first time all night, there was no performance in them. No grateful old lady smile, no lost in the snow softness, just the face of a woman who had spent a long life watching people she loved date for reasons she could not fix. My son was a good man, Clara said. I don't care. Yes, you do. Clara, I swear to God. His name was Anthony Rosetta. He was 39 years old. He was the father of Dante. He was my only child. And 20 years ago, a man was murdered in a hotel room in Queens. a federal prosecutor named William Harding. Abby stopped. The bat did not lower, but she stopped. 3 months after William Harding was killed, 2 FBI agents came to my son's office in the Bronx. They had a gun with my son's fingerprints on it. They had photographs of my son leaving the hotel on the night of the murder. They had a witness who later recanted in writing and was found dead in a motel in New Jersey 6 weeks after the trial ended. Clara's voice had not risen once. My son went to Sing Sing for 22 years. He died in Sing Sing Abbey. He died of a heart attack in a prison infirmary on a Tuesday morning 6 years ago while I was 70 miles away buying tomatoes at a farmer's market because I had told myself that week I did not need to drive up to see him because I had visited him the Tuesday before. Clara's voice did not crack. Only her hands moved the thumb rubbing once slowly over the little plastic body of the USB drive. He did not kill William Harding Abbey. How do you know? Because the men who did, I know their names. The refrigerator hummed, the clock ticked, and Abby Carson felt something shift inside her chest, some heavy stone that had been sitting on her lungs for 3 years, and she did not know yet whether it was shifting toward the light or deeper into the dark. Clara, her voice was hoarse. Why are you telling me this? Because I cannot do what comes next by myself. Do what? Finish it. The old woman lifted her hand off the USB drive. She slid it across the formica exactly the way Frank had slid the $20 bill across the counter 2 hours ago in what felt like another lifetime. My son spent the last 4 years of his life working on this drive from inside a maximum security prison. Information smuggled out 1 page at a time through one guard who owed him a favor to me. Names, dates, bank accounts, wire transfers, 12 federal agents who took money from the Bianchi family to bury the truth about William Harding. 2 of them are still working at the Bureau Abbey. 1 of them is the current director of the Organized Crime Division. Clara, my son died while I was buying tomatoes, Abby. I will not die before his name is cleared. Clara, you cannot put this in my hand. I have already put it in your hand. Take it back. I cannot take it back. Take it back right now. I cannot, Abby. And then the old woman's voice finally broke. Just once. A single hairline crack like ice, shifting on a pond, and underneath it, Abby could see the shape of something huge and unbearable. I had no one else. Yeah. Abby set the baseball bat on the counter. She sat down in the booth across from Clara Rosetta, and for a long minute she could not speak, because her throat had locked around a thing she had not let herself feel in 3 years, and now it was coming up whether she wanted it to or not. How did you find me? My grandson has resources. Your grandson, Dante, that's who's coming. Yes. You told him about me. No. I told him I had something important to show him for his birthday. I told him I wanted to surprise him. Clara's amber eyes were wet now. I did not tell him about you, Abby. I am sorry. Why? Because he would have said no. Your grandson runs your family, Clara. Yes. And you brought his family's business to my door without asking him first. Yes. He is going to be very, very angry, isn't he? Clara did not answer. She didn't need to. Abby closed her eyes and tried very hard to breathe through her nose. The diner she had worked 18 hours a day to keep clean for 3 years. The apartment upstairs where her second-hand bed sat under a window she had never once been able to open because she couldn't stop imagining what might be looking up at it. The baseball bat on the counter, the name Abby Carson, which was not real, which was just a shield which she had built piece by piece out of nothing. All of it was about to burn. There is another reason I chose you, Abby. Oh, I can't wait to hear it. Do you know who Angelo Bianchi is paying right now to find you? Abby opened her eyes. What? A former FBI agent. His name is Leo Santini. What? He was your handler, was he not? 3 years ago, Manhattan. The ground tilted. Abby's palms hit the table because she needed to be sure the table was still there. Clara, she whispered. Clara, how do you know that? Because he works for my grandson now. The diner was so quiet Abby could hear the steam hissing inside the coffee machine. Leo Santini works for Dante. Yes. Leo Santini, the man who handed me a cup of coffee in a Manhattan safe house 3 years ago while 2 men with guns came through the service door. That Leo Santini works for your grandson. Yes. Clara, you have to understand what is going to happen the minute that man sees my face tonight. You have to understand what he is going to do. I do understand. Then why did you bring me? Because, Clara said quietly, he does not know that I know. Abby stared at her. What? My grandson trusts Leo. My grandson has trusted Leo for 2 years. I have spent 14 months gathering the proof that Leo has been feeding the information to Angelo Bianchi from inside my grandson's own security detail. Leo is the reason my son died in prison waiting for Justice Abby, because Leo is one of the 12 names on that drive. Oh my God. And Leo will be here within the hour. Clara, which is why, the old woman said very gently, you are going to do exactly what I tell you to do, Abby Carson. Because if Leo walks through that door and sees your face before my grandson sees it first, then we are both going to be robbed in this diner tonight. Abby's hands would not stop shaking. She put them flat on the table. What do you need me to do? Hide the drive. Where? Anywhere. Your apartment, a floorboard, a sugar jar, I do not care. Anywhere my grandson cannot find it if he has you patted down. If he has me patted down, Abby, listen to me. If my grandson walks in that door and Leo is not with him, we have a chance. If Leo is with him, you hide the drive. You tell no one about it. You wait for my signal, and you do not mention my son's name. Do you understand me? Okay. Do you understand me? Yes. Yes, Clara, I understand you. Her voice cracked. I just testified once already. I already did this once. I did the right thing once and it ruined my life, Clara. I can't do it again. I can't. Clara reached across the table. She took Abby's trembling hands in her 2 small bird-boned ones. You can. I can't. You can. I have been watching you for 4 hours, Abby. I watched you pour coffee for a lonely old man and pretend you weren't the loneliest person in the room. I watched you wrap a stranger in your blanket and feed her your soup when you had every reason in the world to lock your door and turn off the lights. You have been a good woman in a world that has given you no reason to be one. If that is not courage, Abby, I do not know what courage is. Abby did not cry. She had not cried in 3 years. She did not start now. But she squeezed Clara's hands hard, and she took the USB drive off the table, and she slid it down into the front pocket of her apron underneath Frank Davidson's $20 bill. Okay, she whispered. Thank you, dear. If I get us both killed tonight, Clara, I want you to know I tried. You will not get us killed. You don't know that. I know you better than you think I do, Abby Reynolds. And there it was, her real name, spoken out loud for the first time in 3 years, not by an FBI agent, not by a defense attorney, by a small, old Italian woman with snow still melting in her silver hair in a diner in Vermont at midnight in the middle of a blizzard. Abby did not correct her. She just nodded once. Abby is fine. Abby it is. Headlights, real ones this time. They swept across the front window in a slow, expensive arc, and the rumble that came with them was not a plow truck. It was deeper than that, smoother, a V8 engine running quiet money. Clara's head came up. That's him. Which one? My grandson. Is Leo with him? I don't know yet. Clara, I swear to God, if you tell me you don't know one more time. Abby, breathe. You are a woman working a late shift in a snowstorm. You are not Abigail Reynolds. You are Abby Carson. You are tired and you are kind and you are nothing else. Can you be nothing else for the next 10 minutes? Yes. Good girl. The black Escalade slid to a stop in front of the diner. The engine kept running for a long beat, the way engines kept running when the man inside was looking at something and deciding something. Then it shut off. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, cashmere coat. No hat, the cold was not apparently his problem. He moved around the front of the vehicle without hurry, and Abby saw his face for the first time in the yellow spill of the streetlight. The eyes gave him away before anything else. Amber, almost gold. The same eyes that were looking at Abby across the table right now. Oh, Abby breathed. Oh, he looks just like you. He looks like his father. The man Dante did not come straight to the door. He paused on the sidewalk and lifted a gloved hand to one ear, and Abby realized he was wearing a small earpiece and was speaking to someone in the car. The conversation was short. 2 words, maybe 3. He lowered his hand. He looked back toward the vehicle. The passenger door did not open. Whoever was in there was staying in there. Clara exhaled. Leo is in the car. How do you know? Because my grandson just told him to wait. Clara, it means he does not fully trust him tonight either. It means something is already wrong between them. Oh, Abby, oh, this is good. Good for who? For us. Dante Rosetta was walking toward the door now, unhurried, one gloved hand in the pocket of his coat. Abby could see his breath in the streetlight, even steady a man who had never once in his life had a reason to breathe fast. He reached the door, found it locked, did not knock. He simply lifted his amber eyes and looked straight through the glass across the empty diner and found Abby's face. And Abby Carson felt for the first time in 3 years a fear that was not about running. It was about being seen. She had built her whole life in Burlington around not being seen, around blending into the booths and the coffee pots and the cherry pie and the small talk, around making herself so ordinary that even Frank Davidson, who had sat in her diner 300 days a year for 3 years, had never thought to ask her middle name. And this man had just looked through her front door and found her in 2 seconds. Abby, Clara said softly, let him in. He is going to know. Let him in. Clara, he is going to look at my face and he is going to know. Abby, he already knows something. He does not yet know what. That is our only advantage. Let him in before he breaks the door. Abby walked to the door on legs that did not belong to her. She turned the deadbolt, opened the door 1 inch. Dante Rosetta did not push it wider. He waited. Ms. Carson. His voice was low, unhurried, with just the faintest echo of his grandmother's old-world vowels in it. I'm Dante Rosetta. I understand my grandmother is here. She is. Is she safe? She is warm and she is fed and she is tired. She is not hurt. A muscle moved in his jaw. Abby caught it before he had the chance to hide it, and she understood in that second something she had not expected to understand about this man. He had been terrified. The whole drive over. Terrified the way only someone who has lost too much too early in his life can be terrified. I'd like to come in. I need you to do something first. The amber eyes sharpened. Excuse me. I need you to tell whoever is in that car with you to stay in that car. He does not come inside, not tonight. Dante's head tilted just slightly. And why would I do that, Ms. Carson? Because your grandmother asked me to ask you. A long beat. For a second, Abby was sure she had pushed him too far. She watched his jaw harden. She watched the gloved hand come out of the coat pocket slowly, and she was very aware in her body that a man like this did not like being told what to do by a woman in a greasy apron in a Vermont diner at midnight. And then, without turning his head, he lifted one hand again toward the earpiece and said very quietly, Leo, stay in the car. That is an order. A pause. I said stay in the car. Another pause. Dante's face went a shade of cold Abby had not seen on him yet. Then do not ask me again. He lowered his hand. My grandmother, he said to Abby, is telling you things. Your grandmother is tired. My grandmother is lying to me. Your grandmother loves you, Mr. Rosetta. I can tell you that much for certain, because I've been watching her for 4 hours. Now may I please let you in before you lose your fingers? Something flickered across his face, almost a smile. Miss Carson. Mr. Rosetta, you have not been properly afraid of me from the moment I stepped out of that car. Do you know that, Mr. Rosetta? Abby's voice did not shake. She didn't know how, but it did not shake. I have been afraid of worse men than you for 3 years. Come inside. Your grandmother is waiting. She stepped back. Dante Rosetta walked through her door, bringing the cold in with him, and the bell above the frame gave one soft, uncertain jingle, like it could not decide whether what had just walked under it was a rescue or something much, much worse. Behind him in the black Escalade, the passenger side window rolled down 1/2 inch, and in the thin slice of yellow streetlight that fell across the glass, the face of a man Abby Carson had not seen in 3 years, a face she had last seen through a cracked bathroom door in a Manhattan safe house, the night her life had ended the first time, watched her lock the door behind his boss. Leo Santini smiled. Abby did not see Leo smile. She had already turned her back to the window, already slid the deadbolt closed, already pressed her forehead for 1 second against the cold glass because her knees were not going to hold her much longer. Behind her, Dante Rosetta stood in the middle of her diner in his cashmere coat with the snow melting off his shoulders onto her clean tile floor, and he watched her. "Miss Carson, give me a second. Miss Carson, where is my—" "I said give me a second, Mr. Rosetta." She turned around. She did not cry. She did not shake. 3 years of practice in a mirror had taught her how to arrange her face into the shape of a tired diner manager at the end of a long shift, and she put that face on now like a coat. "Your grandmother is in the booth," she said, "right where I left her. She's been waiting for you." "Thank you." He did not walk to the booth. He walked to the counter. He lifted his gloved hand, pulled the glove off one finger at a time, and laid the leather on the formica in a slow, deliberate gesture that Abby recognized for exactly what it was. A man making himself comfortable. A man deciding he was not leaving soon. "May I have some coffee, Miss Carson?" "Your grandmother is right there, Mr. Rosetta. I can see her." "Then go. Coffee first." There was no menace in his voice. That was the thing. There was no menace. And that was exactly what made her hands go cold. Menace was a thing you could see coming. Menace was a thing you could run from. This man was ordering coffee at 1 a.m. in a closed diner while his grandmother sat 10 feet away, staring at his back, and he was not looking at his grandmother, and he was not looking at Abby either, and she understood in her bones what he was doing. He was buying himself 30 seconds to think. "How do you take it?" Abby said. "Black? Anything in it?" "I said black, Ms. Carson." "Right. Sorry." She walked behind the counter on legs that were finally starting to cooperate. She reached for a fresh cup. She did not look at Clara. She did not look at the window. She did not look at her own reflection in the chrome of the coffee machine because she was afraid of what her face would tell her. The coffee hit the cup. The silence was the loudest thing in the room. "Dante," Clara's voice from the booth, small, tired, knowing. "In a minute, Grandma." "Dante, come here." "Grandma, come here, now." And Abby watched the most dangerous man she had ever been in a room with, a man whose name in certain circles in New York was spoken only in the way people speak the names of weather systems, turn on his heel, like an 8-year-old called to the kitchen table and walk to his grandmother's booth and sit down across from her without a single word. Clara took his hand. She took his hand the way only a grandmother takes a grandson's hand. Both of hers folded around one of his, and she pressed his knuckles to her forehead, and she closed her amber eyes. "You came. Of course I came. In the storm. You called me from a strange number, Grandma. You left me a voicemail saying you were in a blizzard. I would have come through worse storms than this." "I know. I'm angry with you. I know that too. You did not call first. I know. You could have died out there." "I know, Caro." His jaw worked. He did not let go of her hand. "You are 83 years old, Grandma. 84 in April. 84 in April. And you took a taxi from the airport in a storm, and you did not call me first. Why?" "Because I wanted to see your face when you opened the door." "Grandma, I did not know how much time I would have, Dante." He went still. Abby, pouring the coffee, saw it happen. Saw the way his whole body, the whole long cashmere-wrapped weight of him, went absolutely still in that booth, because his grandmother had just said something out loud that his grandmother had apparently never said out loud before. "What did the doctor tell you, Brainer?" "The doctor told me a great many things." "Grandma, damn. Dante, what did the doctor tell you?" Clara Rosetta lifted her eyes to her grandson's face. "He told me," she said softly, "that I should spend the year making peace with the people I love." And Abby Carson, behind the counter with a coffee pot in her hand, felt a thing she had not expected to feel in the middle of all of this, which was a terrible, unfair ache in her chest for a man she was supposed to be afraid of. Dante closed his eyes. He did not say anything for a long time. When he opened them again, they were dry, but the color in them had gone somewhere else, somewhere much further away than a Vermont diner at 1 a.m. "Grandma, I am sorry, Caro. Grandma, you should have told me. I am telling you now. Not like this. Not in a—" His voice caught. He cleared it. "Not in a diner, not like this. A diner is where I ended up, Dante. A storm is where I ended up. And a good woman kept me alive until you could get here." Clara squeezed his hand. "Do not be angry at the diner, Caro. Do not be angry at the good woman. Something in Dante's posture shifted, and Abby saw it because she was watching him very carefully now, the way a small animal watches a very large one. The good woman, he said slowly. Yes. The good woman who told me Leo cannot come inside tonight. Clara's face did not change. Yes. Grandma. His voice was very quiet now, very level. What have you done? I have done what I had to do. What have you done? And Clara Rosetta, 83 years old in a coat too thin for Vermont, lifted her chin, and she looked at her only grandson, and she said, I have brought your father's evidence, Dante. The coffee pot in Abby's hand clinked just once against the rim of the cup. Dante's head did not turn, but his eyes did. They found Abby's face across the length of that diner with the accuracy of a rifle sight, and in that second, Abby felt something in her stomach drop through the floor. Come here, Ms. Carson. Mr. Rosetta. Come here. She came. She set the coffee cup down in front of him. She stood there at the side of the booth with both of her hands at her sides, which was a thing she had trained herself to do 3 years ago in the witness prep room, because hands at your sides looked like a person with nothing to hide, and hands in your pockets looked like a person with a gun. Dante did not touch the coffee. He looked up at her. Ms. Carson? Yes. What is in your apron pocket? The diner tilted. Excuse me. Your apron pocket, Miss Carson. You have kept your right hand close to it since I walked in this door. You have not reached for it. You have not touched it. You have protected it the way people protect things they cannot afford to drop. What is in your apron pocket? Abby's mouth was dry. She opened it. No sound came out. Dante, Clara's voice low, a warning. Dante, don't. Grandma. Leave the girl alone. Grandma. She has something of ours in her pocket, and I would like to know what it is before Leo finishes getting cold in that car and decides to come in anyway. Miss Carson, please. Abby's hand moved. It moved without her telling it to move. It went into her apron pocket, past Frank Davidson's $20 bill, and it closed around the cold plastic shell of a small USB drive, and she lifted it out, and she laid it on the formica between the grandson and the grandmother, and she did not say a single word. Dante looked at it. He looked at his grandmother. He looked back at the drive. He did not pick it up. Grandma, it's real Caro. How long have you had this? 14 months. 14 months. Dante, 14 months you have been sitting on this in that house in Queens while I... Yes. Grandma. Yes, Dante. Yes, I know. Why? Because of Leo. The name landed in the booth like a stone in water. Dante did not flinch. He did not move at all. And Abby, watching from a foot away, understood for the first time in her life what it looked like when a man whose whole existence was built on one kind of trust was deciding in real time which pieces of that trust he was about to burn down. Leo, he said. Yes. My Leo. Yes. My Leo who has been at my side for 2 years. My Leo who pulled me out of a parking garage in Queens last March when 2 Bianchi cousins tried to put me in a trunk. My Leo. Dante. My Leo, Grandma. Yes. He closed his eyes. Tell me you are sure. I am sure. Tell me you are sure, Grandma. Tell me you did not hear this from some old woman at Mass who heard it from her cousin. Tell me you have proof. The proof is on that drive. Grandma, your father put it there, Dante. From inside Sing Sing, over 4 years, names, bank accounts, dates of wire transfers, 12 federal agents who took Bianchi money to bury William Harding, and 1 former FBI special agent who has been feeding Angelo Bianchi information about you, about our family, about every shipment at every dock for 2 years. She paused. The one who is currently sitting in your car. The coffee in Dante's cup had stopped steaming. He had not touched it. He had not moved. His hands, the long, square, beautiful hands of a man who had never once done a day of honest work, were folded on the formica perfectly still. Grandma. Yes, Caro. I am going to go get a glass of water from behind that counter, and I am going to stand there with my back to this booth for 10 seconds, and I am going to decide whether to put a bullet in Leo Santini's head when I walk back out to that car. Dante. 10 seconds, Grandma. Dante, look at me. Grandma? Look at me, Caro. He looked at her. Clara Rosetta, 83 years old, who had buried a husband and a son, and who was telling her grandson in a diner at 1 in the morning that she was about to bury herself, too, reached across the formica, and she laid her small, knotted hand over his very still one. "If you kill him tonight," she said, "then my son died for nothing." "Grandma, if you kill him tonight in a parking lot in Vermont, Caro, then he takes everything he knows with him to the ground. And my Anthony dies a murderer in every newspaper that ever printed his name. And your children, when you have them, will grow up the grandchildren of the man who killed a federal prosecutor in a Queens hotel room in 2005. She squeezed his hand. "You don't kill him, Dante. You let him hang himself. You give that drive to a woman who cannot be bought, and she puts it in front of a judge who cannot be bought. And Leo Santini sits in a federal courtroom and answers for what he did to my son." A long beat. "And then," Clara said softly, "after that, Caro, if you still want to, you may do whatever you wish." Dante did not speak. He unfolded his hands. He picked up the USB drive. He turned it over once, twice in his long fingers, and he slid it into the inside pocket of his cashmere coat, the pocket closest to his heart, and he said very quietly, "Miss Carson." "Yes." "Sit down." "Mr. Rosetta, I really should." Miss Carson, please, sit down." She sat. She sat next to Clara because she could not have made her legs carry her around to the other side of the booth if her life had depended on it, and Clara's small, warm hand immediately found hers under the table and squeezed it, and Abby understood that she was not being held there as a prisoner. She was being held there as a witness. "Ms. Carson." "Yes." "My grandmother brought you a piece of information tonight, and you did something with it that very few people would have done." "I didn't." "You put it in your pocket, Miss Carson." "I didn't know what was." "You put it in your pocket knowing my grandmother was in danger, knowing she had not come here by accident, knowing that whatever was on that drive was worth her walking through a blizzard at 83 years old to bring it to your door." Abby opened her mouth, closed it. "Mr. Rosetta," she said, "I put it in my pocket because a scared old woman asked me to. That's the whole reason." "No, Miss Carson." A small, tired, almost smile tugged at one corner of his mouth. "That is not the whole reason, but we will get to the rest of it in a minute. First, I need you to answer one question for me, and I need you to answer it honestly because my grandmother's life and mine are both going to depend on the answer." "Okay. Have you ever seen the man in my car before?" The breath went out of her. "Yes." "Where?" "Manhattan." "When?" 3 years ago." "Under what circumstances, Ms. Carson?" Her mouth had gone so dry she had to wet her lips twice before any sound would come. "Mr. Rosetta," she said, 3 years ago I testified in federal court against Angelo Bianchi. I saw him kill 2 men in the kitchen of a restaurant where I was waitressing. I went into witness protection. The man in your car was my handler. The night after my testimony, 2 men came through the service door of my safe house with guns. The only person who knew the address of that safe house was the man in your car. Another handler got me out through the back. I have been running for 3 years. She pulled her hand back out from under the table very carefully because Clara's grip had tightened to something that hurt. "Mr. Rosetta, my real name is Abigail Reynolds." Dante did not move. He did not blink. He just looked at her across the booth for what felt like a very long time, and Abby could see something happening behind his amber eyes that was not anger and was not surprise. It was something colder than either of those things. It was a man doing math. "Grandma." "Yes, Caro." "You knew." "Yes, Caro." "You knew and you brought her into this anyway." "I brought her into this," Clara said quietly, "because she was already in it. She has been in it since the night those 2 men came through her service door. She just did not know whose war it was." Dante closed his eyes. For the first time all night, he looked tired. "Ms. Reynolds." "Abby." "Abby." He opened his eyes. "I am sorry." "For what?" "For every hour you have spent running for the last 3 years. For the fact that the man in my car is the reason those 2 men found your safe house. For the fact that you have been paying a price for my family's war, and you did not know you were paying it." Abby did not say anything. She could not, because nobody in 3 years had apologized to her. Not the FBI, not the prosecutors, not the marshals who had lost her file, not the faceless men at the bureau who had decided her name was less important than the careers of the agents on Angelo Bianchi's payroll. Nobody, And this man, this cashmere-coated, amber-eyed, dangerous man, who was supposed to be the second monster under her bed, this man had just said, "I am sorry," before anyone on the good side of the law had ever bothered to. She was not going to cry. She was not going to cry in front of Dante Rosetta in her own diner at 1 in the morning. She had made herself a great many promises in 3 years, and that one was going to hold if she had to chew a hole in her own tongue. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet." "Okay, because we have a very serious problem, Abby." I gathered. "Leo has been out in that car for 11 minutes. He has not called me. He has not radioed the perimeter team. And he is currently, as I am sitting here speaking to you, holding a phone in his hand with the screen dark, which means he has turned it to face the floor of the vehicle so that I cannot see who he is texting through the window." "How do you know that?" "Because I watched him do it in the side mirror as I walked up to your door." Abby's hand went to her mouth. "He's telling Angelo Bianchi I'm here." "Yes." "Right now?" "Yes." "Oh my God." "Abby, listen to me." She listened. "Angelo Bianchi has men in Burlington already. He has had men in Burlington for 4 days. He has been looking for you for 3 years, and he finally got a hit on your face 2 weeks ago through a credit card transaction that an agent of his in the bureau flagged. He has been waiting for the right moment, and the moment he has been waiting for is the moment a storm closes the roads and the moment his man gets confirmation that you are alone in a diner. That moment is right now. Mr. Rosetta." "Dante?" "Dante, the roads are closed." "The roads are closed to plows, Abby. They are not closed to men who are already in Burlington and Escalades with winter tires." "How many men?" "At least 6, probably 8. "Oh my God. We have maybe 20 minutes before the first vehicle gets here. What do we do?" Dante stood up. He reached into the inside pocket of his coat, not the one with the drive, the other one. And when his hand came back out, there was a gun in it. Not drawn, not pointed, just laid flat on the formica in front of Abby. "Do you know how to use one of these, Abby?" Yes or no?" "I'm a little. A little. They toy at me. In protection. Basics." "Take it, Dante." "Abby, take it. You are the one they are coming for. I am not going to die in this diner tonight trying to protect a woman who cannot protect herself. Take the gun." She took the gun. It was heavier than she remembered guns being. "Okay. Clara, back office, now." "Dante, Grandma, do not argue with me. Back office, lock the door from the inside. Do not open it for anyone whose voice you do not recognize. Anyone, including Leo. Including Leo." "Yes, Caro." Clara slid out of the booth. She paused at Abby's shoulder. She did not say anything. She just pressed her forehead for 1 second against the side of Abby Carson's head, the way a grandmother presses her forehead to a grandchild, and then she walked down the hallway to the back office, and Abby heard the lock click behind her. Dante was already moving toward the front door. "Dante, what are you going to do?" "I am going to go tell my former head of security," Dante Rosetta said with a voice as calm as ice on a pond, "that he has been fired." "Dante, he's armed. So am I." "Dante, Abby." "What?" "If I do not come back through that door in 5 minutes." He paused with his hand on the deadbolt. "You take my grandmother out the back. There is a service road behind the kitchen. My car has keys in it. You drive to the address on that paper she gave you. You do not stop. You do not slow down. You do not look in the rearview mirror. Do you understand me?" "Dante, wait. Do you understand me, Abby?" "Yes." "Good." And then the bell above the door gave one small, clear jingle as Dante Rosetta in his cashmere coat with a USB drive over his heart stepped back out into the blizzard toward the Escalade. Behind the counter of the Pinewood Diner, Abigail Reynolds stood alone with a baseball bat in one hand and a handgun in the other, and she listened to her own heartbeat, and she watched the window. Through the glass across the snow, the passenger door of the Escalade opened. Leo Santini stepped out to meet his boss, and his right hand was already inside his coat. Abby's whole body screamed at her to bang on the glass, to shout, to warn him, to do something. But Dante Rosetta was already halfway to the Escalade, and Leo Santini's hand was already inside his coat. And Abby understood with a clarity that scared her more than anything she had felt in 3 years, that the 2 men out in that parking lot were about to decide which of them was still breathing in 30 seconds, and there was nothing she could do to change the math. She pressed her palm flat against the cold glass. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Don't you dare." Leo stepped clear of the Escalade door. He did not draw the gun. His hand came back out of his coat with a pack of cigarettes. Abby's forehead dropped against the window. "Oh, you bastard." She watched Leo tap one out, watched him shake his head. At something Dante said, watched him laugh. She could see the laugh even through the snow, the small puff of breath in the streetlight. Dante did not laugh. Dante stood 4 feet from the man who had been at his shoulder for 2 years and did not move a muscle. His gloved hand was not in his coat. He was not reaching for anything. He was just standing there letting Leo Santini light a cigarette in the middle of a blizzard, and Abby understood watching it that Dante Rosetta was doing the same thing he had done when he walked into her diner 20 minutes ago. He was buying himself time to think. He was letting Leo get comfortable. He was letting Leo believe that Leo was still trusted. "Oh," Abby breathed. "Oh, that is terrifying." And then she saw it. Leo's free hand, the one not holding the cigarette, slid down along his thigh. Casual, unhurried, the way a man rests his hand when he's listening to his boss tell him something boring. His fingers opened. Something small and dark dropped into the snow at his feet. A phone. Abby's stomach dropped with it. He was getting rid of the phone he had just been texting on. The phone she and Dante had watched him type into through the side mirror. He was destroying the evidence before his boss could ask for it. And Dante, standing 3 feet from him, could not see it because Leo's body was in the way. "Dante," Abby whispered against the glass. "Dante." Dante, his hand. She could not bang on the window. She could not shout. The second she drew attention to herself, Leo would know that the woman inside the diner was the one Dante had been protecting, and the gun in Leo's coat would come out of his coat, and 2 people would be dead in the snow inside of 4 seconds. So Abby did the only thing she could do. She moved. Her feet were already carrying her back toward the hallway before she had made the decision. She shoved the handgun into the front waistband of her jeans the way she had been taught once, a long time ago by a marshal who had told her she would never ever need to do this. She reached the back office door. Clara, it's me, open the door." "Abby, open it. Now, please." The lock clicked. Clara opened the door 2 inches, saw her face, and pulled her inside. "What is happening?" "Leo just dumped a phone in the snow." "Dio mio." "Clara, listen to me. Dante cannot see the phone from where he's standing. Leo is going to step on it or kick it into a snowbank the second Dante turns his head. If we lose that phone, we lose everything Leo was texting. We lose who he was texting. We lose the chain. Then we cannot lose the phone." "I know. Can you get to it?" Abby pressed both hands to the top of her head. "Clara, if I go out that front door right now, Leo sees my face and we all die. Then you don't go out the front door." "What?" "The service road, Abby. You said yourself. The back of the kitchen. You come around the side of the building. You stay low. You take the phone out of the snow. You come back in through the back. You do not let Leo see you. In a blizzard, Clara, with no coat. Then take my coat. Clara, your coat is still wet." "Abby," the old woman's amber eyes held hers. "That phone is my son." Abby stopped. For one long second, she and Clara Rosetta just looked at each other. "Okay," Abby breathed. Okay. She grabbed the heavy kitchen apron off the hook by the door, thick canvas long, and yanked it over her head. She grabbed the knit hat she kept in the office for winter walks to the bank. She grabbed Clara's damp coat because Clara shoved it into her arms and refused to let her say no. "Abby, be fast and then be slow." "What?" "Fast to the phone, slow coming back in. A woman running looks like a woman running. A woman walking looks like she was always out there." "You've done this before, Clara." "I have been a Rosetta for 60 years, dear. I have done many things before. Go." Time. The cold hit Abby like an open hand the second she stepped out the back. She had forgotten in the warmth of the diner what the storm actually was. The wind came at her sideways and slapped the breath out of her lungs. The snow was up over the top of her sneakers before she had taken 3 steps. She pressed herself against the cold metal siding of the kitchen wall, and she edged inch by inch along the side of the building toward the front. Her breath was fogging so hard she could barely see. At the corner of the building, she stopped. She crouched, and she slid one eye around the edge. Dante was still in the parking lot. He was standing in exactly the same spot he had been standing in when she left the window, and Leo was still smoking, and Abby could hear their voices now, faintly carried on the wind. Telling me she didn't let you inside. And she has my grandmother in there. Leo, she was not going to let a stranger in. I'm not a stranger, boss. I'm your security, and that's exactly the problem. You're in there alone without me. For all I know, she's got a gun to your grandmother's head right now. Abby Carson does not have a gun to my grandmother's head. And you know her name, boss? A beat, a very small beat. But Abby heard it, and Leo heard it too. She introduced herself when I walked in, Leo. Of course I know her name. Right, of course. Abby's heart was going so hard she could feel it against the canvas apron. The phone was 6 feet away from Leo's boot. It had fallen into a drift, half buried. She could see the corner of the black plastic case sticking out of the snow just barely at the edge of the yellow spill from the streetlight. 6 feet. She was going to have to crawl across the open parking lot, behind a man who was actively looking for excuses to shoot her. Clara, she whispered into the wind to nobody. If I die out here, I am coming back to haunt you. She went down on her belly. The snow crunched under her ribs and she froze and she waited, and Leo did not turn around. She crawled, one forearm at a time. Elbows, knees, elbows, knees. The snow soaked through the kitchen apron in about 4 seconds. Her fingers went numb almost immediately, but she kept moving because she had done harder things than this in her life. She had run from a safe house in her socks in Manhattan in January, and if she could do that, she could do 6 feet of snow. 4 feet. What I'm saying, boss, is you've been in there 20 minutes. I'm not comfortable with you in there 20 minutes without eyes on you. You are going to have to be comfortable with a great many things you are not comfortable with tonight, Leo. 3 feet, Leo's boot shifted. Abby froze. The boot lifted, came down, crunched the snow 6 inches from the corner of the phone. He was about to kick it under the Escalade. 2 feet. She stretched her arm out through the drift. Her numb fingers closed around the plastic. She pulled. It came loose with a small puff of powder, and she dragged it back under her body, and she rolled onto her side in the drift, and she lay there with her own breath fogging up into her face, and she waited to find out if Leo had heard. He had not. All I'm saying is, with all respect, boss, your grandmother is 83 years old, and I do not like the idea of her in a diner with a woman nobody has run a background check on. We will run the background check tomorrow, Leo. Tonight she is a woman who saved my grandmother's life. Show some respect. Yes, sir. Abby slid the phone inside her canvas apron. She started crawling back the way she had come. She made it to the back door. She made it inside. Her legs gave out on the kitchen tile, and she sat down hard on her backside, and she just breathed, and Clara was there in 2 seconds with a dish towel, throwing it over Abby's shoulders and pressing hot hands to her frozen cheeks. Abby, you're blue. Abby, look at me. I got it. Abby. Clara, I got the phone. Clara Rosetta, 83 years old, sat down on the kitchen floor of a diner in Burlington, Vermont, and she took Abigail Reynolds' frozen face in both of her small, warm hands, and she kissed her forehead. You brave girl, she whispered. You brave, brave girl. Clara, I know. He almost saw me. I know, dear. Clara, what do we do with it? It's locked. I can't unlock it. I don't know his password. Clara, the whole reason I risked my neck for that phone was so we could see who he was texting, and I can't even. We do not need to unlock it. What? We only need to keep it from disappearing. The moment my grandson and a federal agent have possession of it, the password is not our problem anymore. They have people. Oh, you did it, Abby. I did it. Yes, I did it, didn't I? And Abby Carson, who had not cried in 3 years, felt something very small and very dangerous crack loose in her chest, and she put her forehead against Clara Rosetta's shoulder for exactly 1 second, and Clara did not say a single word, because Clara Rosetta had lived long enough to know when a woman needed 1 second of silence and nothing else. The bell above the front door jingled. Abby's head came up. Abby, Dante's voice from the main room, level, controlled. Abby, where are you? Back kitchen. Come out, please, slowly. Keep your hands where I can see them. She looked at Clara. Clara nodded once. Abby got to her feet. She pulled the canvas apron off over her head, laid it on the counter with the phone still tucked inside, and she walked out into the main room of her diner with her hands open and loose at her sides. Dante was standing inside the door, alone. Snow was melting off his coat onto her tile floor for the second time that night, and his amber eyes were the color of something that had just been set on fire. "Where is Leo?" "In the car." "Dante, where is Leo?" "In the car, Abby, sitting in the driver's seat, listening to music. I told him I was going to get my grandmother and bring her out, and he nodded and he got behind the wheel. He thinks he is about to drive the three of us to a safe house in New Hampshire in the next 10 minutes. "Oh, yes." "Dante." "What?" "He dropped a phone in the snow while you were talking to him." The silence that followed was about 2 seconds long, but the temperature of it moved like a cold front. "Say that again." "He pulled a pack of cigarettes out of his coat with one hand, and with the other hand, he dropped a phone into the snowbank on the passenger side of the Escalade. He was trying to get rid of it before you could ask him for it." "Where is the phone now?" "In my apron. In the kitchen." Dante did not move. Dante did not blink. "Abby." "What? Did you go outside?" "Yes." "You went outside?" "Yes." "In a blizzard, behind a man with a gun, for a phone?" "Yes." He closed his eyes. For a long moment he did not speak, and Abby could not read his face because his face had gone somewhere she could not follow. And then Dante Rosetta opened his eyes and he looked at her and he said very softly, "Abigail Reynolds, you are out of your mind." "I know. Give me the phone." She walked back to the kitchen. She came back with the phone in both hands and she gave it to him, and Dante Rosetta turned it over in his long fingers exactly the way he had turned over the USB drive an hour ago. "It's locked," she said. "Yes." "I don't know the password." "That is not a problem, Abby. Clara said you have people." A small, dry, tired smile pulled at one corner of his mouth. "Yes, Abby, I have people." He slid the phone into the same inside pocket of his coat where the USB drive was waiting for it. "Get my grandmother, we are leaving." "Dante, Leo is going to." "Leo is going to sit in my car and wait for me to come out with my grandmother because he believes I do not know what he is. He will drive us to New Hampshire. And somewhere on the road between here and the state line at a gas station, I have already picked out 2 of my men are going to invite Leo to step out of the car, and Leo will not be getting back into it." "Dante." "Abby." "Dante, you said you weren't going to kill him." "I said I wasn't going to kill him tonight in your parking lot where it would bring the state police down on your diner in 20 minutes. I did not say anything about a gas station 3 hours from here. Abby, with no cameras and a man who will be alive and breathing when he gets into a federal courtroom next week and tells a judge everything he knows." "Oh, yes. You're handing him in." "My grandmother," Dante said quietly, "made a very good point tonight in that booth." And for the first time since she had met Dante Rosetta, Abby heard something in his voice that was not armor. It was the sound of a grandson whose grandmother had just outmaneuvered him with love, and who was still underneath all the cashmere and all the guns and all the amber-eyed ice her boy. Abby did not say anything. She just walked back to the hallway, and she tapped once on the office door. "Clara, he wants us to go." Clara opened the door. Her purse was already over her arm. Abby had the thought standing there in that hallway that Clara Rosetta had probably packed that purse with exactly the possessions she needed for this night and no others before she had ever gotten into the taxi. That thought opened a small, cold door in Abby's chest that she did not have time to close. "Clara." "Yes, dear." "Did you plan this, all of it, from the beginning?" "I planned as much of it as a woman can plan." "Did you plan me?" A pause. "I hoped for you, Abby. I did not plan you." "What does that mean?" "It means I did not know, when I walked in that door, whether you would be the woman I had heard you were. I hoped. I did not plan." "And what woman had you heard I was?" "A good one." Abby's throat closed. "Okay, ciao." The 3 of them stood at the front door of the Pinewood Diner. Dante was buttoning his coat. Clara was tying her scarf. Abby was staring at the bell above the door, like a woman who already knew she was not coming back to this place the same person. "Dante." "Yes." "If I walk out this door with you tonight, I am burning my whole life in Burlington to the ground." "Yes." "Everything I built here. Everything I know, Abby. I'm going to lose this diner." "Yes." "I'm going to lose my apartment." "Yes." "I am going to lose Frank Davidson." "Who is Frank Davidson?" He comes in every day for my cherry pie. He's 78. Dante looked at her for a long beat, and then very quietly he said, when this is over, Abby, you will come back, and Frank Davidson will still be here, and you will serve him cherry pie. I give you my word. Dante, you don't know that. I know that. You don't know that, Dante. You can't possibly. Abby. He turned and faced her, fully amber eyes on hers, coat collar still loose around his throat. I am a man who has done a great many things. I have lied to a great many people. I have broken a great many promises I made to a great many men who did not deserve to be kept. But in my whole life, I have never once broken a promise I made to a woman who risked her life for my family. I am telling you this now because I do not want you to walk through that door tonight believing you are walking away from your own life forever. You are walking away from it for 6 weeks, 8 at the most. Do you hear me? Dante. Do you hear me, Abby? Yes. Good. He opened the door. The cold came in. He stepped out first and he held his hand out to his grandmother and he helped Clara Rosetta down the snowy step to the sidewalk with a gentleness that even now, after everything she had learned about him tonight, made Abby's chest hurt. Abby was the last one out. She paused with her hand on the door frame and she turned around and looked back at the Pinewood Diner one more time. The lights on the chrome, the red booths, the pie case, the coffee pots, the baseball bat still lying on the counter. The little yellow note taped to the register that said, Happy Smile. Sad smile anyway in Frank Davidson's shaky handwriting, which he had brought her the week after she started, and which she had never had the heart to take down. She closed the door. She locked it. And she walked to the Escalade, where a former FBI agent was sitting behind the wheel, listening to Frank Sinatra on the stereo, with absolutely no idea that the woman about to climb into the back seat had just taken his phone out of a snowbank with her bare hands. Leo Santini turned around in the driver's seat when the back door opened. His eyes found Abby's face in the dome light. For 1/2 second, she saw him see her. Really see her. The way a man sees a ghost. His mouth opened. And before he could say a single word, Dante Rosetta, climbing into the passenger seat beside him, said, Drive Leo. Boss, drive Leo, New Hampshire, the long way, and turn the music up. Leo's hand went to the gear shift. His eyes stayed on Abby's face in the rearview mirror for 1 second longer. And then the Escalade pulled away from the curb of the Pinewood Diner into the white, and Abigail Reynolds sat in the back seat holding Clara Rosetta's small, warm hand, and she did not look back. The Escalade moved through the white with the quiet confidence of a vehicle that had never once in its life gotten stuck in anything. Frank Sinatra was singing It Was a Very Good Year through the speakers, and Abby Carson sat in the back seat with Clara Rosetta's hand in hers and a handgun pressed against the small of her back, imbued in her waistband, and she watched the back of Leo Santini's head, and she did not breathe. Boss, Leo's voice from the driver's seat, casual, calm. This long way you want to take? You talking Route 7 down to Rutland, or you talking the back way through Middlebury? The back way, Leo. Boss, the back way is going to be hell in this weather. Might be closed altogether. Then we will find out together. Boss, yes, Leo. I don't like not knowing the plan. Leo. Dante's voice did not rise. It did not fall. It did not change temperature by so much as a degree. When was the last time I told you the plan before you needed to know it? Never, boss. That's right. Yes, boss. So drive. Leo drove. Abby watched his eyes in the rearview mirror. She had known men like Leo Santini in the bureau. She had sat across tables from men like him for months. Men who kept their faces smooth no matter what was happening behind them. Men who smiled when they should not have been smiling. And she could see now in the small glass rectangle of that mirror that Leo Santini had made a decision somewhere around the 3rd block, and the decision was written in the tightness at the corners of his mouth. He knew. He knew she was Abigail Reynolds. He had known the second the dome light had come on in the back seat. And he was calculating right now at 45 miles an hour in a blizzard whether his best move was to get them to the gas station Dante had picked out or to end this whole thing before the gas station. Clara's hand tightened on Abby's. Abby, the old woman's voice very low, barely more than a breath in Abby's ear. You remember what my grandson said about the long way? Yes. He did not pick the long way for the scenery, dear. I know. Do you know what he picked it for? For his men at the gas station. Yes, and for one other thing. What? Clara's amber eyes did not leave the back of Leo's head. For the phone call he is about to make. Dante reached into his coat. Not the pocket with the USB drive, not the pocket with Leo's phone, a different pocket. He pulled out his own phone, thumbed the screen once, and put it to his ear. Leo's eyes flicked. Calling who, boss? Leo. Yeah, boss. Drive. Leo drove. The phone rang twice in Dante's ear. Somebody picked up. It's me. Dante's voice was as mild as a man ordering a steak. I'm on the road, 2 passengers in the back. My grandmother is one of them. The other is a guest. I'll be at the rendezvous in about 2 hours. Is everything in place? A pause while the voice on the other end answered. Good. Another pause. Yes, yes, everything, she said, all of it. Another pause. No, he is driving. Leo's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. Abby saw it. Clara saw it. Dante did not look at Leo. He was looking straight ahead through the windshield at the snow. All right, 2 hours. Tell the judge we're coming. He hung up. The silence in the car after he said, tell the judge we're coming, was the loudest silence Abby had ever heard in her life. Boss? Yes, Leo. What judge? Drive Leo. Boss, what judge? Leo. And Dante Rosetta turned his head slowly for the first time since he had gotten into the passenger seat, and he looked at the man who had been his shadow for 2 years, and his amber eyes were as empty as a frozen lake. Leo, I will tell you one time, and I will not tell you again. Keep your hands on the wheel, keep your foot on the gas, and drive. Leo's jaw moved, once, twice. Yes, boss. Thank you, Leo. Abby did not realize she had stopped breathing until Clara squeezed her hand again, and she gasped very softly like a woman coming up out of water. 3 miles, 4 miles, 5. The Escalade moved through the storm like a black ship on a white sea, and inside the vehicle 4 human beings were pretending to each other that nothing was happening. Frank Sinatra finished "It Was a Very Good Year" and started "Fly Me to the Moon." Clara closed her eyes in the back seat like a woman praying a rosary without needing the beads. And somewhere around mile 7, Leo's right hand left the steering wheel. Abby saw it first. Just a small gesture. He scratched the side of his jaw. His fingers dragged idly, casually down the collar of his coat, the way a man scratches when he is bored. But his hand did not come back to the wheel. It stayed at his collar, his thumb hooked just slightly under the fabric. Abby's whole body went cold. Dante. Her voice was so quiet she could barely hear it herself. Dante. I see him, Abby. Dante, his hand. I see him. Leo's eyes were on the road. His face was mild. He was humming along with Sinatra badly under his breath, and his hand was 3 inches from the shoulder holster under his coat, and Abby Carson knew with the certainty of a woman who had stood outside this exact moment before in her life that Leo Santini was about 2 seconds from making his move. Dante moved first. Dante moved the way a man moves when he has been rehearsing a thing in his head for 2 hours of highway. His left hand came out of his coat pocket with a small black object she did not recognize, not a gun, not quite, and he pressed it flat up against the side of Leo's neck right under his ear, and he said very quietly, don't. Leo froze. Boss. Don't, Leo. Boss, what is... This is a stun gun, Leo. It is going to drop you for about 90 seconds. And in those 90 seconds, my grandmother is going to climb over the seat, and she is going to steer this vehicle very gently into the shoulder. And I am going to take your weapon out of your coat, and I am going to put a pair of zip ties on your wrists, and then we will continue to New Hampshire. Do you understand me, Leo? Boss, you have the wrong... I said, do you understand me? Boss, listen to me. Whatever she told you, whatever the old woman told you, it's not... Leo. Boss, please. Goodbye, Leo. The clicking sound of the stun gun firing was small and ugly and almost polite, like the snap of a book closing in a library, and Leo Santini's whole body locked straight up and then went slack against the seatbelt, and his foot came off the buoy and the Escalade slowed. Clara was already climbing. Over the center console. Tiny, 83 years old, moving like a woman who had done this sort of thing a long, long time ago and had never entirely forgotten how. She slid into Leo's lap, reached her small hands around his slumped shoulders to take the wheel, and she steered the Escalade very gently, very calmly onto the snowy shoulder of the road. Grandma. I've got it, Caro. Grandma, brake. I've got it. The vehicle stopped. Dante had Leo's gun out of his coat in 4 seconds. The zip ties came out of a pocket Abby had not even known was in the coat. Leo was breathing slow, shallow, but breathing, and his head was lolling against Clara's shoulder, and Clara, queen of a crime family her whole adult life, patted his cheek with something that was almost tenderness and was almost pity. Leo, she said softly to the unconscious man in her lap, I warned my Anthony about you 11 years ago. I told him that boy has empty eyes. He told me I was a paranoid old woman. And look where we are now. Grandma, get out of the front seat. I'll move him. Yes, Caro. Dante opened his door and came around to the driver's side, and between the two of them, the grandmother and the grandson, they lifted the slack weight of Leo Santini out of the driver's seat and laid him across the back on the floor at Abby's feet. Abby did not move. She stared down at the man whose face she had last seen through a cracked bathroom door in Manhattan 3 years ago, and she felt not rage, not grief, not even relief, just a flat, heavy, endless tiredness. You lying son of a bitch, she said quietly. Leo did not answer. Of course he didn't. Clara slid into the back seat beside her. Dante took the wheel. The Escalade pulled back onto the road, and Frank Sinatra mercifully kept singing. At the gas station 3 hours later, Dante's two men were waiting exactly where he said they would be. They did not ask questions. They simply lifted Leo out of the back of the Escalade, loaded him still bound into a plain white panel van with out-of-state plates, and drove away into the snow in the opposite direction, toward Albany, toward a federal courtroom that by sunrise would have a great many unscheduled appointments on its docket. Dante came back to the Escalade. He got in. He sat for one long moment, which I'm on, with his hands on the wheel. That's it, he said. That's it, Clara echoed. Grandma. Yes, Caro. We actually did it. We actually did it. Dante put his face in his hands. And Abby Carson sat in the back seat of a black Escalade at a gas station in southern Vermont at 4 a.m. and watched the most dangerous man she had ever met cry silently into his own palms for about 11 seconds. And Clara Rosetta leaned forward and laid her small, warm hand on the back of her grandson's neck, and she did not say a single word. Because some things a grandmother does not say out loud. 6 weeks later, Angelo Bianchi was indicted. Not just Angelo. 11 federal agents, 3 of them still active at the Bureau, one of them the director of the Organized Crime Division. Carlo Bianchi arrested in a marina in Florida trying to board a boat registered to a company that did not exist. A deputy attorney general out of New Jersey who had spent 9 years quietly killing investigations into the Bianchi family and who was now himself the subject of one. The drive did all the work. So did Leo's phone. So did Leo himself in the end, a man who, when presented with 30 years in a federal prison or a plea agreement that came with a new name in a state he had never been to, had chosen the new name with remarkable speed. And Anthony Rosetta's name, 20 years after his conviction was cleared. A judge in Brooklyn read a statement from the bench at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. A reporter from the New York Times was in the courtroom. The next day's paper ran a photograph of Anthony Rosetta at his high school graduation, amber eyes bright, a young man who had not yet been framed for the murder of a federal prosecutor. Clara Rosetta clipped the photograph out of the paper with a pair of kitchen scissors. She put it in her purse. She carried it there for the rest of her life. Okay. Abby did not go back to the Pinewood Diner for 2 months. When she finally did, it was on a Tuesday afternoon in early spring when the snow had finally broken and the grass on the lakeshore was coming back in that stubborn Vermont green that never actually apologized for the winter. She parked across the street. She sat in her car for a long time. The bell above the door jingled when she walked in exactly the way it had jingled 1,000 times before, and Frank Davidson looked up from his corner booth and his whole old face lit up like a porch light coming on at dusk. Abby! Frank, where have you been, sweetheart? Long story, Frank. I figured as much. How's the pie? Not the same. Well, she pulled her apron down off the hook where she had left it. She tied it around her waist. She slid the little yellow note off the register, the one that said happy smile. Sad smile anyway in his shaky handwriting, and she pressed it flat with her hand just to be sure it was still real. Let me fix that for you, Frank. You gonna tell me that long story someday? Someday, Frank? Someday soon? Someday. He smiled into his coffee. Good enough. It was Dante who walked in next. Not that afternoon, not the next day, but on a Thursday, 2 weeks later, in a charcoal sports coat and no tie with his collar of his shirt open, and he stood inside the doorway of her diner with his hands in his pockets and his amber eyes on her face, and he said, "Ms. Carson, Mr. Rosetta, I told you I would not break my promise. You did. I owe you a piece of cherry pie, I believe. I don't remember that being part of the deal, Mr. Rosetta." "No, no. Are you sure?" "Positive." He sat down at the counter. He did not take off his coat. "Abby?" "Yes. My grandmother has been asking about you." "How is she?" "Tired, slow, happy. She made me drive her to the cemetery last week. She brought flowers for my father." A small, tired smile. First time in 20 years she did not put them down and then apologize to him. "Oh, yes." "Dante?" "Yes." "What did the doctor actually tell her?" 6 months, maybe 8. That was in November. We are in April." Abby set the coffee pot down. She came around the counter. She did not know quite what she was going to do until she was doing it, but she slid into the seat beside him and she took his hand, the way Clara had taken her hand that night in the booth, both of hers around one of his, and she said, "Dante, tell her I am coming this weekend." "Abby, tell her I'm coming and tell her I am bringing cherry pie." He looked at her for a long beat. His fingers closed around hers. "I will tell her." Clara Rosetta died on a Sunday morning in July. She died in her own bed at the Lake Manor Estates house with the window open and the smell of the lake coming in, and her grandson on one side of her holding one hand and Abigail Reynolds on the other side of her holding the other. She had lived long enough to see her son's name cleared. She had lived long enough to see Leo Santini sentenced. She had lived long enough to see Angelo Bianchi plead guilty in federal court on a Tuesday afternoon in May and be escorted out of the courtroom in shackles. She had lived in the end long enough. Her last words were to Abby, "You brave girl. Oh, Clara, you brave, brave girl. I love you, Clara. I know, dear." And then she was gone as simply as a candle going out, and Dante put his forehead down against his grandmother's hand, and Abby sat there with her other hand, and the lake outside the window kept being the lake, and the world kept being the world, and that was the strange and unbearable truth of it. 1 year later, the Pinewood Diner got a new sign, Rosetta's. Burlington did not know quite what to make of it at first. Rumors moved through the town for a while. A diner owned now by a woman whose name nobody had ever quite been able to pin down. A man in an expensive coat who came in every Thursday evening and sat at the same booth and ordered the same slice of cherry pie. An old photograph in a small frame on the wall behind the counter. A dark-haired young man at his high school graduation. Amber eyes bright with the words Anthony Rosetta, 1984, handwritten underneath. Nobody asked. Nobody needed to. Frank Davidson still came in every afternoon and still ordered his cherry pie and still sat in his booth. He lived to be 83 years old, and he died in the spring of his 84th year, and Abby closed the diner for the day of his funeral, and she did not open it for a week after because grief is a thing you feel in a small town with both hands. She never went back to being Abigail Reynolds. Abby Carson was fine. Abby Carson had done what she had done, and Abby Carson was going to keep doing it, and nobody in Burlington needed any other name from her than that. On the wall of the diner next to the photograph of Anthony Rosetta, she hung a second frame. In the second frame was a small yellow note in shaky old handwriting that said, "Happy smile." Sad smile anyway. It stayed on that wall every day she owned the place. It stayed there through winters and summers, through slow Tuesdays, and full Saturdays. Through the day, she married a man with amber eyes in a small ceremony at the courthouse with Frank Davidson as her witness. Through the day, she brought a dark-haired baby girl into the diner in a sling and named her Clara, through every ordinary miraculous year that followed. And that is the end of the story. The frightened woman who locked her door against a blizzard opened it instead, and the old stranger she saved turned out to be the one who would save her right back. The man she was supposed to be afraid of became the man she built a life with. The name she had been hiding for 3 years was the name she laid down by choice. And a diner in a small town in Vermont on a night when a storm buried everything became the exact place where 3 lives were put back together for good. That is what love looks like sometimes. That is what justice looks like sometimes. And that is what one small act of kindness offered to one half-frozen stranger on one impossible night can do to a whole life that thought it was already over. Thank you for staying with this story all the way to the end. If it moved you, please take 1 second right now to hit that like button, to subscribe to the channel, and to write in the comments what city or town you were watching from tonight. I read every single comment, and it means the world to me to know how far a story like this one can travel. Take care of yourself, take care of the stranger at your door, and I will see you in the next story.